The strange thing about being forgiven is that it doesn't always feel like freedom. Someone can look at you and say, "It's okay," and you can believe they mean it, but something in you still doesn't move. Not because they didn't forgive you, because some part of you still doesn't believe you're allowed to be forgiven. There are moments that stay with you because you know you were careless. Not evil, not cruel in some dramatic way, just little more careless that you should be with the person you actually love. You said something too sharp. You made a joke that touched the wrong place, but you didn't mean it. You were defensive and someone needed you to be gentle. You rushed through a conversation and only understood later that you left someone feeling smaller than before. And the worst part is not always what happened at the moment, it's the second after. When you see their face change, when the room gets quieter in a way you can't fix, when you realize that you spoiled someone's mood for today's evening that meant to be warm and fulfilled with love. You start feeling like it's too late, that your words landed somewhere you never meant them to land. So you apologize. Maybe not perfectly, maybe too fast, maybe awkwardly. But you try. You start to explain what you meant. You admit what you didn't see at the time. You tell them you're sorry. And after some time, maybe not that day, maybe not immediately, they soften. They stop holding it against you. They talk to you normally again like nothing happened. At some point, they give you the thing you thought you were waiting for. They forgive you. And somehow that doesn't end it. Because now the problem isn't only between you and them. It's between you and the version of yourself that said it. The version still embarrasses you, still makes you feel unsafe in your own head. You think about what you should have said instead, how you should have paused, how obvious it seems now. And even though the other person has moved forward, you keep returning to the same place, almost like you're trying to stand there alone enough to become someone else. Someone more careful, someone kinder, someone who didn't need the lesson to hurt another person first. I know this feeling, not as a clean lesson, more like a small bruise you keep pressing to check if it still hurts, and someone still does. There are conversations I can remember too clearly, word by word, not because they happened recently, because I didn't like who I was in them. I can remember the tone, the timing, the moment I could have chosen softer words and I didn't. And even if the other person doesn't bring it up anymore, I can still feel the old instinct to punish myself a little, as if that will make the apology more real. For a long time, guilt can feel like respect, like if you stop feeling bad, you're treating the other person's pain too lightly. So you keep the guilt close, you revisit the moment, you replay the sentence. You imagine better versions of yourself walking through that conversation with more grace than you had. It almost feels responsible. But responsibility and safe punishment are not the same thing. Responsibility asks you to see what happened clearly. Self-punishment keeps turning the same moment over and over again until it becomes your whole identity. One helps you become more careful, the other just keeps you afraid of yourself, your thoughts and emotions. And that's the quiet trap. You think accepting forgiveness means pretending it didn't matter, but it did matter. That's why you apologized. That's why you changed how you speak. That's why you spend the whole night in a bed sleepless. Accepting forgiveness doesn't erase the harm. It just means you stop acting as the only honest response is to keep hurting yourself after the other person has stopped asking you to pay for it. There is a kind of guilt that no longer protects anyone. It doesn't help the person you hurt. It doesn't repair your relationships. It doesn't go back in time and make you gentler. It only keeps you locked inside the old version of yourself, as if staying there proves you understand what you did. And being inside your head starts to feel like being in a prison. But understanding is supposed to change how you live now, not trap you inside who you were then. Being forgiven can feel uncomfortable because it asks something strange from you. It asks you to stop arguing with someone else's mercy. They have already said, in whatever way they could, "I don't want to keep you there." And you keep answering, "No, I should stay." Not out loud, but in the way you remember it. In the way you flinch from yourself. In the way you treat one careless moment as a proof that there is something permanently wrong with you. The person who forgave you is not asking you to forget. They are not asking you to call it fine. Of course, it can be really painful for them to hear such words from you. But they are only giving you a way to stop standing in the same pain forever. And there is humility in taking that. Not the kind of humility that makes you smaller. The kind that admits, "I was wrong. I tried to repair. I learned something, and I don't have to keep reopening the wound to prove that I care. The harder part is that forgiveness rarely arrives as a feeling. You don't wake up one morning suddenly clean. More often, the memory returns, and your body reacts before your mind does. A tightness in your muscles, posture, a flash of shame, the old sentence in your head. But then, there is a small space after it. A space where you don't have to follow the memory all the way down. You can feel regret without turning it into a life sentence. You can wish you had done better, and still accept that the person in front of you now is allowed to be different. That might be the art of it. Not forcing yourself to feel innocent. Not pretending you never caused pain. Not rushing into peace before the lesson has actually changed you. Just allowing forgiveness to finish the work it was trying to do. The apology was one part, the change in you was another. But receiving forgiveness is also part of becoming better. Because if you refuse it forever, you're not protecting the person you hurt. You are only protecting the belief that you are impossible to release. Maybe you're scared of what happens after guilt. Because guilt gives you something to hold. A reason to keep watching yourself. A way to feel like you're still paying attention, still caring. Without it, you have to trust your change more than your shame. That's not easy. Shame feels louder. Change is quieter. It shows up in the next conversation. In the moments you start actually thinking before saying. In the softer answers. In the decision not to use honesty as an excuse to be harsh. In the way you become more careful without making your entire life an apology. So if someone forgave you, and you still haven't forgiven yourself, don't force some beautiful ending. Start smaller. Stop treating their forgiveness like it was naive. Stop treating your guilt like it's the only proof that you care. The person who hurt them is not the person you are required to keep being. The memories can stay, the lesson can stay, but the punishment does not have to. At some point, the kindest thing you can do with what happened is not to keep suffering over it. It's to become someone who would not do it the same way again. Someone who learned his lesson. And then, allow that to be enough.